Chris Cavalier. And Marvin, you want to come up, Marvin? Marvin is in the classroom. Thank you so much for being here. Oh, pleasure. My pleasure. So just tell us, how this came up for you. Well, this is my first feature film. I've done a bunch of shorts, but I didn't feel like I had a story that was really strong enough to carry a full feature. And I think the inspiration initially came out of my own transition and evolution of faith. I grew up much like Dave did in an evangelical conservative Christian home, being taught that loving the sinner, hate the sin is the is the loving approach. 6 years ago, I'm ashamed it took me that long to meet some people, some fantastic people who really just kind of shattered what I thought faith was that I had the world in. And they introduced me to this idea that love and God and faith and all of that is so much bigger and deeper than I could have imagined. So once my eyes were open to that, I felt like with my background and who I was as a straight cisgender white guy that I felt compelled to do what I can to help share the message of love and to challenge Christians who grew up much like I did to open their eyes a little bit and to let go and start asking questions. And then for the youth who grew up in those situations who are in the LGBTQ community, I wanted them to hear that God is awesome with who they are. If they believe in God, God is great with who they are, and they're fabulous just as they are. So that's where it started.
Talk a little bit about your involvement with the church.
Just as they are. So that's where it started.
Talk a little bit about your involvement with the church.
Ooh. Well, I mean, until the past 3 years, I would say, the church was my world. I grew up in a youth group. I went to a school called Southeastern University, which was very similar to, may have been the inspiration for Lakeside Christian. I went to be a youth pastor, and then realized I don't really like youth that much. But I was still on staff at a church up until 4 years, very involved the entire time. And I don't know, I feel like this is the way they have for years now responded to and treated the LGBTQ community is unacceptable. And I feel like now the way it's shifting is that it's not so blatant. It's like this phrasing of all are welcome. Almost every church you go to, you will hear that all are welcome. But if you ask them, can a gay person, trans person be a pastor? Can a it's not policies aren't quite as welcoming as they say. So this is one topic that is on really just wouldn't let go of my heart, the way the church handles, but it's a lot bigger. It's not just LGBT for sure. We've all seen several past couple, it's never ending. Every time I feel like, the church, that's as far as they can go with who they're supporting or what they're doing, they surprise me. So, and not in a good way.
So I want to give this, if you could just talk a little bit about how you got involved in the movie and a little bit about your
Hello guys, my name is Steven. I live in Atlanta. I play Dave Hopper. Where are we going to find the next role? The project really stuck out to me because I'm having as far as my upbringing, very conservative, kind of small town type area. Luckily, I was kind of a rebellious child, so I know the whole conservative thing. And there was this picture on Facebook that Kevin put out there, and there was a face, kind of like the one that you saw on our poster, of a guy holding a Bible and a rainbow flag. So immediately, kind of had to click on it. Then I sent Kevin my info. We started emailing a little bit, did an audition, had some time.
That goofy kind of character, bringing in a goofy character. Basically, just an awesome story. Basically, just look at things, well, look at from different sides and just bring that truth out there. Other than that, it's a great story.
Hi, I'm Jace Greenwood, and I live in Atlanta too, with these guys. And how I got attached to this film, I saw it on Facebook. I saw Dave's breakdown, and don't really fit that age range. So I messaged Kevin asking if there was another role that I could audition for. I auditioned on tape for him, sent it in. He cast me in it. And then I was ridiculous and turned it down because it was filming all the way in Lakeland, and I lived in Atlanta. But then my husband, we were rereading the script a couple of times, and I was like, I have to be a part of this. These movies do not get made. Especially with like Christian and LGBT mix, it just doesn't happen. So I emailed Kevin a lot, and said, hey, can I please have my role back? He asked someone else, that availability didn't work out, and then he gave it back to me, and I basically was like, yeah, that should happen.
I want to talk to you a little bit about the film because, I mean, this isn't a straight up drama. I mean, there's a lot of humor in this. So just talk a little bit about, tackling the film that deals with issues. Sorry about that. Talk a little bit about making a film that deals with issues, but also has heart and humor as well.
Well, my first few goes at, because I had I landed on the tension of the church, the evangelical church and the LGBT community. I landed on that tension before I had this specific version of the story. So my first couple of attempts at it were not as fun. I was, not as, there wasn't laughter in it like this, not at all. And then I don't know, something about, I just realized that I felt like the good way into something like this is to have as much laughter as you can to kind of break whatever ice, to be able to, soften hearts. Because I do feel like there's, multiple audiences, and one of the bigger audiences I hope that get to see this movie are people like me 5 or 6 years ago who are starting to doubt what they were raised with or what their view of God is. And so I feel like in order to soften that, the best way into that is some comedy. And that's, I feel like, much harder to do than some of the drama stuff. So that's what I was most nervous about in writing it, that and having an authenticity. But yeah, I'm so thrilled that I was able to find a cast that was able to bring that, those reactions and that comedy to it, because I feel like every day on set I'd be watching the monitor and watching what they're doing and absolutely loving, like it was beyond what I imagined when I wrote it. So it was fantastic to work with these guys.
So we're going to open it up for questions from the audience. Does anyone have any questions for Kevin or the actors? Yes.
What was the duration from pre-production to post time?
Pre-production, well, I guess we would say when we the second or third time, whenever we are actually shooting this thing, because our auditions were we auditioned in December, January, and then it wasn't until 12 months later that we actually had dates and started shooting. So then I was telling all these actors saying, hey, remember that thing you auditioned for a year ago? We're shooting it. So once we set, and that was all dependent on funding and finances, and couldn't find any film stories. You guys have heard these before, can't find money and all that. So that got pushed back. Once we were like, this is what we do, I would say hardcore pre-production was probably 2 or 3 months. We shot for 23 days with a few breaks in it, and then we wrapped in February of 2017. So, and then we premiered it in June of this year. So, ultimately, like it just got finished this summer. You know, I was making tweaks and all of that. So post-production was a lot long. Well, I guess every stage except for the actual shooting was longer than I anticipated or expected. But.
Yes.
I'm curious from a Christian point of view. I mean, I'm an atheist, but you know, one of the common things I hear is that sure Paul spoke out against homosexuality, but Christ never did. And I kept expecting in one of those scenes for that to come up, and it never did. Why not?
Did you say you are an atheist?
Right.
Okay. I just want to make sure I heard you right. I mean, I would probably classify myself as agnostic right now. I think that I think there are so many questions in the universe that for any of us to feel like we have answers to them is kind of, I don't know, I just don't have questions to them, or answers to them. So, yeah, I guess I would say it's one of those things where, like, you have so much to say in this sort of thing. There are so many points that you can make. There are so many, ways that you can tackle it. For me, I didn't feel like a theological. There was the one scene in the classroom where they're kind of going back and forth, and Gordon, the dean, is kind of laying out his whole case there. But what I've seen, what I've experienced in my own life and in other people who have shifted their faith and shifted their views, is that it's not so much the logical or the theological questions that change first. First, it's, again, from my experience and from others, it's the heart, it's the, this doesn't feel right, it's the, these people that I know don't line up with what I've been taught, like, that people can't have, some of the most Christ-like people I know are within the LGBTQ community, and that doesn't line up with what my pastor taught. So for me, it was important to focus on the heart and on the stories of the people within that community, and how, as so much as like the Bible says this and doesn't say this, or, you know, I didn't want to get into, I'm not a theologian, I don't do well in those conversations, and I felt like addressing that was almost like step 2 or 3. Like, I felt like step 1 was almost like, yeah, like almost like maybe we don't have the answers. Like, that's like, let's ask some questions, was where I wanted to start.
I found it very interesting that most of your major heroic characters in the movie were straight. And I was wondering if you planned that, or if it was your choice, because I thought it was a mix for a much stronger story, I think. To have all these straight people, you know, fighting for
Well, so I feel like, for one, it seems like at least the people in power have been for a long time publicly, I would say, publicly straight people. So as far as certain characters, in certain characters, I felt like for it to be the way the world works, like that was important, you know. And for the way that I wanted it to be, that, you know, the angle for the lead character to go through. I honestly was, because I'm always curious on how that will be received from people, because you know, there's rightly a big push for stories that are for specific causes or specific people to center on that people, you know. So like, if it's a story about Native Americans, let's not make main person a white guy, you know, moving in, you know, living, experiencing life with Native Americans, that sort of thing. So I was always a little, I wasn't sure how that was going to go. But again, for me, for the way that I wanted to tell the story, and for the way that I was hoping that this would help move fractions of the church in a direction, I felt like it was important for them to see Dave and see what's possible, what kind of change is possible from a heart standpoint, and that it's not that like if we don't straight cisgender people, if we don't change and speak up and make our voice like it's not the marginalized, it's not the job of the marginalized to express their hurts to the offenders. You know what I mean? Like it's the job of the ally or the advocates to do that. Like we shouldn't be that's our job. So you got something.
I also think that Nate is one of the most important characters in that movie, and same with Patty. And it comes down to with this, it's not strictly just like LGBT. It's the fact that like this movie will show what needs to change in a very specific category of people. And like Nate, I think him and Patty, even though Steven did a fucking great job, and he's awesome, and Danielle and the rest of the cast, but Patty and Nate, especially Nate, definitely changes Dave's mind to the point where it's like the overall arc of the entire movie, and I think he's amazing.
So I would, okay.
I don't know how much you've shown it at this point, but do you have any reaction from the faith community?
That is a good question. Strangely, PureFlix hasn't offered to distribute it. That's for sure. So it's interesting in, I feel like this, so yes, this is the fourth screening we've had for it. One was a screening in Lakeland where we filmed it, a like sneak peek sort of thing, which we had like 700 people out for, which was an amazing, amazing evening. So much support for, I mean, my city has heard about, like, it was 4 years that they've heard me talking about this movie, so they're like, oh, let's actually see this thing. And then we've had in LA, and we had Dance with Films Festival in LA, New Hope, Pennsylvania, and Jersey City last weekend, but no specific, push specifically for a faith community, or no like group of them hasn't necessarily seen it. I suspect that it's a movie that is going to be rented on iTunes a lot by the faith community, and that won't talk about it publicly, I guess that's what my hope is, at least, that they will start, like, that this is those that are curious, that they'll rent it and watch it, so hopefully start a discussion. I'm certainly hoping that some schools and some, faith communities will watch this and lead a discussion about it. I know I'm actually talking with, there's a section of the United Methodist Church called the Reconciling Ministries Network. And yeah, they're fantastic. They are working with churches to help them become fully inclusive and affirming. And I'm talking with the regional director of the Southeast area.
Helen Ride!
Yes, Helen Ride, absolutely. And I'm really hoping that we can, I guess there's some like convention or something in February. She's actually trying to get St. Louis. She's trying to get like all the churches to watch it before they go to this convention where they're voting. That would be awesome. But no, personally, individually, friends who have seen it, I don't know. I think they all have known where we've had. It's been a lot of personal stuff. So personal people, personal friends. So they have certainly throughout the 4 years been asking questions. Because our shift here, they're in Lakeland. My wife and I's shift is a pretty public thing, I guess. So people kind of knew where we stood before that.
I just think it's really important that the faith community see this kind of film, and this film in particular. I'm really impressed. I'm a straight person, and a strong member of a church here in Atlanta, sing in the choir, been there for years. I also went to another church service this morning, and both services were concentrating on talking about Christ and God's example was for people to love everybody. And that's the kind of thing that they're talking about, preaching in the churches, and that we all need in today's world. I mean, I'm a woman watching things going on television. It's everywhere. There's hatred everywhere. And people need to understand that you need to love everybody. So I just think that message is wonderful and applicable across the board to many other types of people.
I think we have time for 2 more questions. I want to ask one, and I know Floyd has one back here.
Hi, my name is Floyd Taylor. I have orange groves in Winter Haven, and ours are with Florida Citrus Mutual, and the Hunt Brothers cooperative manages our grove. And Dealey Hunt, the brother, it was so hard for him as a closeted gay man to live in Polk County and that nightmare and everything. And one of my life mentors, an openly gay Episcopal priest, Father Warren Thompson, helped start, who helped raise me basically, helped start PFLAG down there and keep all of that going, and would be out ministering to AIDS patients when AIDS first hit and stuff like that. And it was hard for me as an openly gay man to go even see my own orange groves down there each year, because, and to go to the meetings, you should see the amount of hatred and stuff against anybody any different down there. And it's so sad that so many people still today are suffering in Polk County and areas like that. Change is happening, and I'm a supporter of Zebra House in Orlando, and I helped open Disney World. I worked there for many years and stuff. And so a lot of friends are still working down there for the youth that were thrown out, but it even hurts adults down there. It's rough.
Yeah, yeah, that's, my wife and I have been, one of the first things when we decided this was the movie we were gonna do was join, PFLAG in Polk County. And that has become our church community, or for lack of a better word. That is our community now. They're fantastic people, and yeah, it's a lot of what, kind of Bruce's monologue towards the end about saying how, like, it's easy to get into the thing of like everything is changing so rapidly, and marriage and all of that, but there's still so much work to be done in hearts and minds. So that, I appreciate you bringing up Polk County and PFLAG. That's certainly they're doing fantastic work, and I would say within the past 2 years. There's been this large influx in Lakeland, in Polk County, who, I know you guys aren't from Polk County, you don't know, but I don't know if we have a sheriff, Grady Judd, who's kind of not awesome. But he, in that town, but in this like kind of conservative town, we've had an influx of trans youth coming out in their high schools, and that's been amazing to watch, and the parents of these youth that are coming out have been fantastically supportive of them and learning alongside them. There's a lot of change happening, but there's a lot that needs to be done, for sure.
I want to ask you 3 one final question. So what's it like watching this with an audience?
Good. It seems like all the jokes hit, so we kind of at least seem to be funny, so that was good. I watched it for the first time with an audience in Lakeland, and still, every time, I don't know if it even has to do with the audience, there was things about the movie that I didn't expect since I was there on the day, and I remember how everything was lit. It's much more of a less fictitious experience for me since I saw it all get made. Every time I see that last ending of the picture of Aunt Patty, just like, it rips my heart out.
Such a great relationship.
Yeah, it's weird to watch her face for almost 2 hours, but the story and his writing is so good that it's still entertaining to watch.
Well, basically, it's my first time watching it because, I'm always working on something else. And they're like, oh, we're going to be over here. Oh. But yeah, at the same time, it's just like just watching it, just from that other angle. Like I was talking to Kevin earlier, and I was just like, yeah, where are you going to sit? Where are you going to sit where you're watching it from? And he was telling me, he's like, I'm going to sit in the back. So I like to see the expression on everyone's faces when those moments hit. Like you see it on paper, we've done table reads, we've been on set, and when you see it, when you actually see it, and how it hits you from the film, just the way the picture, the way the story's told, you can see how it affects you. You look at people next to you, you actually see, especially like feeling of how it affects every single individual person, because film is life from different views from different peoples. So at the same time, you look at it, it's just that awe.
Okay, first I want to say thank you guys for coming out. That is incredible. And when I had the audience, when we were watching it down in Lakeland and and the multiple times I've seen it, everyone has shown a great humor towards it, but then like they also show the dramatic side of it too, and how that affects everyone's feelings. And when Nate comes out, that scene when Patty dies and all that, just when I hear like the sniffles in the crowd and like the cries and stuff, it's kind of magical.
Thank you all so very much for being here. Thank you for coming out today to support Autumn Game. And maybe we can go outside and do some photos. Yeah. Great. Thanks so much, everybody.